What was the toughest part about that protest?
Leaving.
Sean, did you know that there was a plan that night that we wanted investigations to get in the car so nobody would be on scene, drag the car to the southeast sub, secure it there. We'd already cleared it through the DA's office. That way we wouldn't have to deploy ERT.
Was I aware of that then?
Yeah.
No.
Do you think that would have made a difference?
If we hadn't deployed, certainly it would have made a huge difference.
Did you know you guys were never deployed, that Lieutenant self-deployed?
Nope.
I asked for an IA, and Sean, you could call Aaron and you could ask Aaron, because me and Aaron had a heart-to-heart talk about this, and Albert, and everybody else involved. That self-deployment caused us to have to use force. There were sergeants on scene that day that decided they were going to argue with the tactical commander who just happened to say it over the air. Joe Beers was trying to tell people, get in the car, take it to the sub. It meant every aspect of exigent circumstances to remove that car from the scene. It was a lack of communication and people immediately, in the heat of the moment, wanting to know why, when there wasn't time to explain. And it got us in a huge jam since that first one. And that's what we've been dealing with since day one. On Sunday, when the individual came out, and the individual was there with a firearm, we were very concerned about that person's safety, the fact that 150 people had gone from the stage, and it became, from a bunch of people speaking and talking, they had all flooded where? Where did they all go? They all went to the individual with the firearm with their kids. The CP, Roger, read through city legal, it was ran, and we said, we think that this meets the criteria for inciting a riot. Roger, what did you do then?
At that time, I made the call that if people began to cross the street and circle a person, that the likelihood of it escalating could happen, resulting in a shooting or anything of that nature, to protect his children. So at that point, if people crossed the road, we drew a line in the sand and an order was given to have ERT go out and extricate him from the situation and bring him into the convention center. And we called impact so they could come and do the criminal complaint for inciting a riot and or child endangerment.
So, who remembers back when we had detectives talk with the individuals who were the self-proclaimed guardians of the city from Jackson? Greg, what's his name? The fighter Jones, John Jones Bones. Who remembers that? Who's aware of that? Honestly, who's aware? Nobody's aware? One person? Two people are aware of that? We instantly became sympathizers for the opposite side. And we have to have a balance as an administration. A balance, and we keep telling people neutral, neutral, neutral. We don't expect anybody to treat anybody differently. Neutral, neutral, neutral. So we had that we also have to overcome. That we have been portrayed, and it has been a good sense in the community, because trust me, I'm the one that gets the emails and the phone calls. A lot of people saying, why are people being treated different? Why are we calling people friendlies? Who's aware of the friendly comments? Why are they friendlies? I don't know about anybody here, but any armed person who's outside displaying their firearms, to me, are also part of the problem. I'm not saying that they're doing anything illegal. I'm saying it's just adding more and more fuel and gas to the problem. So what was the plan with everything that was happening on Sunday? The plan was very simple. We knew when Roger sent ERT out, what was going to be the hardest part? Bringing them back in, getting them off the line, and making sure everybody doesn't follow them like they did that first night, hitting the bus with rocks and tossing stuff at the officers. So it was a coordinated effort. The moment hands went on that individual, does everybody know what the department tweeted? The department tweeted the individual was detained and cited. Has anybody looked at the video of what everybody in the crowd started to instantly say? Once again, to them, and this person wasn't a Proud Boy, everybody started to say that person is being coddled and escorted out and protected by the police department. What did we start to do also? I straight up let every protest person that we worked with know we're taking them out of the picture, we're detaining them, we're citing them. We had the charges. I know ground level decisions were made by supervision there, and we respect it. But in the end, did you know that the CP was never notified? Roger, did anybody tell you that this person was cut, never cited, and that they weren't even ID'd?
No, I was not notified.
Brian?
No.
It put us in a jam. And the plan we had, which ended up working flawlessly, the group they tried the doors a little bit. The crowd went away, they got in a fight with themselves. We had fuel on a fire like any other time that we've had to use force, and it went away. Roger, who gave us advice on where to pull back officers?
Where to pull back officers?
Yeah, when we had our bike officers, we were bringing...
The groups that we were working with, some of the groups that were out there, some of the organizers, they were indicating, hey, this is what's making the crowd get upset. You have a group, you have some marked officers. I think it was to Harris and 3rd. We pulled them back, and within about 5 minutes, the crowd calmed down.
And then what did they text us? We'll be done in 20 minutes and gone. And 20 minutes later, it was done and gone. I apologize that during the heat of all these incidents, we can't have these conversations and we don't have the time to explain everything that's going on and all the parts that are moving. Every ER team is inside of a room in a basement or in a back room. We have live feed and people on the ground at every single protest, and we know exactly what people are saying, what people are doing. We knew everything that was being said. We'll survive. I think we're letting down fellow officers, and like I said, I'm not here, everybody quit, that's fine. We will be dispatching field officers. We have no other choice. I talked to Sean last night. If there's an emergency, we'll dispatch field. We already did it once. We're not starting anything new. Who worked downtown? Downtown was out of control till when? Till the field officers got there and shut down traffic. That was the first thing I realized when I looked at that board that night, and I got there late. You talk about making tough decisions. When the chemo was almost burning down, does everybody know there was a huge concern about launching armor because it didn't make a 76 criteria? I made the decision, send in the armor, we're going to save the chemo. We're not afraid to make decisions. We made decisions Sunday to take somebody out of the crowd, as we had to. Let me ask you another thing. We've taken a lot of hit and a lot of criticism over Uñate. Who worked Uñate? How many times have I stood up there and I took the hit for this department on what happened in Uñate? Is anybody in here aware that, you know what? DC Medina wasn't even in the CP. DC Medina was at home making hamburgers because it was his night off. When Ray Del Greco called me and it was basically done. and I came in. And since then, I've always took the hit, because it's my job. Other ERT members will go on call more frequently, some might quit. Field officers will be dispatched to assist without the right gear. New Mexico State Police, their lower levels will say, we're not gonna help. I'll call the governor's office, state police will be put on standby with us. We're sending a whole group out where, Aniston?
Yes, sir.
To get trained for ERT. Every cadet will now be trained for ERT coming out of the academy, and I'll have them for 1 year as P2C status, and we will go forward. I said I wasn't here to ask anybody not to quit. But I hope everybody in here realizes the consequences and that we're a team. And we take just as many hits on the 5th floor as officers do on the ground level. Has anybody in here had to have their family read every day or for months the horrible officer or person that somebody is and how they killed a kid? Because my family does. And my family watched the news as protesters walked downtown and said, Chief Medina, fuck him. Excuse my language. Just quoting what they said about me. So if anybody thinks that the highest levels of this administration doesn't take the same hits as the lowest, and that we needed time on Sunday, this thing was resolved by Monday. On Sunday, our priority was IDing this person and getting this on course. We needed to find out what happened going back to that first incident, because we had to know. We didn't know why this individual wasn't cited. We had to provide answers. You ask Aaron, you ask Sean, call them and ask them right now. I sat with Aaron and spoke to him for 10 minutes when we finally had a break. We had time, we had video uploaded, and we were able to see exactly what happened. And for the first time, you asked Sean, for the first time, a chief said, we're going to pull the brakes on this and we're going to slow things down. We'll get through this. The rest of the department will get through this. Like I said, we're fine. Thank you for the time that you devoted to ERT. I appreciate that. We're a team. I won't quit on this team. For anybody who doesn't realize this, I'm not here because I had to be. I would have been named the finalist in 2 big cities within the next 2 months. I chose to stay here. I didn't quit. Yes?
Sir, sorry to interrupt you. For me, my own personal decisions as far as resigning from ERT, I guess I have a question as far as it sounds like there's a lack of communication, and I totally understand when you're involved in something, sometimes you don't have time to explain why you're doing what you're doing. But I guess for me, why was a relief of duty the answer? And I know you said we could call Hoisington and ask him, but I also think because there's an investigation going, that's probably not the best thing. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk to him about it. But why is a relief of duty? Because I really just, I did put myself in his spot. I think it could have been any one of us there. And I'm super empathetic to you as well, sir. So I don't understand why it was a relief of duty. If it's insubordination, IMR, we have policies that we follow. So I just didn't know what was so egregious. Like, did he commit a crime? What happened?
That's what we didn't know. Nobody knew why this person wasn't, and we still don't know.
No, why was Hoisington? Did Hoisington commit the crime? Like, why was it gun and
This is what we don't know. We still don't know why this person at the time, and we got a little more view into it. But you have to think of the big picture, and this is where everybody looks at the emotional small part of this. The big picture is, do you know what happened January 6th across this nation? We had people try to overthrow the government for their own personal beliefs. We had somebody out there on one side who completely walked away from the scene as far as the 5th floor knows. You tell me that's not a serious issue that we're dealing with, that somebody that everybody in the command post is saying is gonna be cited completely walks without being identified. You tell me that that is not something that is so serious in today's environment that we should not be concerned enough to make sure that we investigate it. And the other thing is, going back to the very first protest, too many times people are taking independent action when they shouldn't. You combine those things, yes, it was a great sense of urgency. And it is in a way, the fifth floor needs to put their foot down. Because I'm telling you, to me, does anybody here not think you're endangering a child by having 150 people swarm over to you and you have 2 firearms? Let's be honest, anybody think that doesn't mean endangering a child?
I don't think it was the brightest thing. Of course, we don't have bright people who show up to those. I also don't think we could, if it's a rescue circle and he's possibly going to be a victim of inciting a riot, okay, and then those clear instructions need to be. But also ERT, that's never something, I've been on ERT. I just joined as a supervisor because I wanted to help because we were short on supervisors. And I get being a part of a team. And I completely understand about being dedicated and not leaving officers hanging. I've also been a field officer who was dispatched downtown because I wasn't a part of ERT and they needed help while I was on break. But ERT is there to keep the peace of the assembly, not to detain and cite. We don't have our pens on us. We don't have our papers on us. So I guess I don't, again, lack of resources, I guess.
Roger, I'm gonna stop right there real quick. Roger, when you explained to me what happened yesterday, what were the first 2 things I told you were gonna do that there was a gap that ERT had? And you know what, getting mindful, be mindful. Should the chief of police of an agency this big be figuring that out? No, we have an experience gap all the way through. Roger, what were the first 2 things we said we were gonna change?
We wanted to make sure that impact is on scene because we have them. They're at the Valley Sub, so that's why we have that time delay. But from here on out, impact's going to be on scene. They're going to be staged very closely where they're still in a safe area, but they could move in order to affect any sort of investigation that needs to take place. The second thing would be known as like a kind of communications liaison with the crowd, and it would be a position on ERT where we're able to relay information to the crowd as it's happening. So from us, because there was a gap of communication from the CP down to the boots on the ground, and it has to be corrected. And this communication person is going to answer all those questions. Yeah, there was a gap, but the simple fact that nothing was. Brian, did you have any clue that this person was released? We had no information. Nobody got on the radio and said, hey, we didn't have time to ID this person, they were cut. Nothing. We had nothing to go off of. So yes, decisions were made off of the nothing to go off of. You know, the answer I got back was, well, can we talk to you? Why didn't you talk to me? Mike, you pulled in 2 tactical officers 2 weeks ago. What happened to you? Very short.
PPC for not having a union rep in there, even though it was not a discipline-based conversation. Period.
You didn't need to show your hands, but when we called this meeting, I would just venture to guarantee somebody in here called Sean and said, we need our union rep.
So I did not actually call him, but I think for me, again, and I hope this doesn't put a target on my back, but I'm terrified of retaliation or discipline for just saying what I see. And I don't know all the details, so I'm glad you called this meeting, but I feel like there's not really any transparency. And I mean, I think we should have called all of ERT, even those who didn't quit, so we all are on the same page and we should have known.
We'll do that later. But I'm telling you, where's there been retaliation? You ask Sean. Sean needs to own it too. You ask Sean how many times I put my foot down and make sure that something doesn't get carried away. There's disciplinary cases that go through FRB and all these other processes. There is nothing we can do. They have to take their course. It only hits 40 hours when it gets to me. When it hits 40 hours, when it gets to me. Well, there's tons of things we take care of. There's nobody been retaliated against in this department. There's been a lot of allegations, and the vast majority of the allegations on retaliation, you know what level it's at? The sergeant and lieutenant. And every single sergeant and lieutenant has been cleared thus far. I think we've had one sustained, but it's the rumor mill. And I've talked about this. The rumor mill is killing us over and over again. I said it in the briefings. Discipline was high in November, October, 100 cases. December it was down to 79. Last month was again in line. It cut in half. Everybody needed an awakening. It's sad. I needed it during my career. I took it. Everybody's always all worried. Oh, there's going to be retaliation. Oh, retaliation.
Well, it's not just that. Like, for me, this isn't just a job. This is my career. I put everything into it. And so when I think that for lack of communication, lack of resources, that you can show up to my house and say you're relieved of duty right now, that terrifies me.
It terrifies you, Erica, but look at the position we've been left in. And then my first thing is I told Sean, every DC knows it, every lieutenant is going to know it, every commander. You have the right to speak to people as long as you're not conducting an investigation. And this department needs to learn that. The biggest complaint I hear from Sean is, Chief, in your day you used to bring us in, chew us out, and send us on our way. Yes, but we can't no more. Because immediately, oh my God, it's hostile. Oh my God, I want my union rep. You're entitled to them. If we're investigating you or we're asking you questions that you're going to be disciplined on. Sean knows I know how to play the game. That's why Sean didn't make any issue about today. I know that chances are 9 out of 10 that somebody probably has a tape recorder somewhere in their pocket and this will be in the front page of the Journal tomorrow. I know where we are as a department. I knew my chief's corner would be leaked to the media at some point. I posted it online. I mean, I want you to think about this. Everybody has complained. Chief doesn't communicate. Chiefs don't. Historically, even when I was here, I was the first one that has put together a once a week message to the department. And what happened? It's tough all the way around. It's not easy. And I wish we could have had conversations, but there is also something called time. You know what? I was tired Sunday. I worked Saturday. I had worked. I don't think I'd had a day off since I don't know when. We were going to regroup and review stuff on Monday, but we had to take action because what we knew was nothing. You have 2 lieutenants here. They're members of the CVA counting you. They knew nothing. There's ownership at every level. There's ownership and communication, and it happens. In this incident, I look at the ownership of communication at every single level, all the way to the top. My instructions to them were, try to explain this the best you can to Aaron, so he knows. Because I didn't want him going home feeling bad. Wanted him to know. Mike, do you guys feel comfortable talking to people anymore?
No. Just a PPC will come.
That was my instruction to them. Try to do the best job you can. Him and Donnie met with him. Spoke to him. I have more respect for you than anybody else right now in this department because you spoke up. That's the person I am. Sean, you know me. I respect people when they speak up.
Sir?
Yes.
So, just to be clear, I left 3 weeks ago based on the discipline policy and the exposure, the additional exposure that ERT gets for being out there and doing what we've been told to do. To my understanding, and I could be wrong, we haven't even reviewed last year's after action reports. It hasn't done before force review or whatever we do for everything that happened last summer. So at this point in my career, and I'm speaking for me, I'm not speaking for anybody else in this room. After 20 years of doing this, with my body being literally, I can't hoist 60 pounds worth of gear up and down Central anymore. It was time for me to go, and I made that decision. But the discipline policy, in my opinion, and I'm not in either of your shoes, has to change. And that's the reason I left, is because I don't feel like exposing myself to that kind of discipline at this point in my career, potential discipline.
Everybody knows, does everybody understand the position we're in? The fact that if we don't navigate this path forward right with discipline and DOJ, we will be in receivership. I don't know if everybody understands how close we are to that.
Y'all understand what receivership is?
Yes, does everybody understand receivership?
It means an outside entity is the chief of police, and that is not an overstatement. It means that that outside person would tell Chief Medina what to do. He would have no independent thought, no independent decision making. So envision that related to your discipline, policies, all of those things. And that is not an overstatement of what it was. And DOJ actively considered pursuing that option.
That's what they want. That's what all the community groups want.
That's why command and control is so
I worked hard
It is.
to get EFIT approved. It is going to cost us money. But, we weren't going in a full receivership. IA was going to be taken over by the Department of Justice appointed person who would have the final say-so, the final review cases the way they want. They bring their own people in to review them. That is what we had to avoid. That's what we were left with. I didn't create this. I didn't sit here and act like I created this. I recommended termination in several key cases that weren't upheld. We got blown up in IMR 12. We're going to get blown up in IMR 13. It's coming out in 2 weeks. I'm fine with it. But you know what I do? What I'm not fine with is I am trying, Sean. I've only been in charge of this department 9 months, and I'll tell you, Zach Cottrell is on the verge of getting a change to our disciplinary process approved that hadn't happened in the years before.
And educate us, why hasn't it happened?
Nobody had the guts to do it, I guess. I can't explain that. I was in charge of IA. I mandated Zach and I said, get this done. We cannot. A 7 is a 7 is not a 7. We can't progress people to death. It's killing us. I can't answer for why anybody else in the first 5 years didn't do that. But we're going to get there. It's on the verge of being approved. I wish it could be done faster. When's the last time a chief sent a response to one of the IMT's findings? Because I sure in the House sent one to Hernandez on how he was, on what our view was on that.
What's an IMT?
The monitoring team.
Okay.
They'll say things that we don't agree with. Previously, we just took it. Now, we're trying to obviously do an in-depth investigation and give our opinion if we factually disagree. That had never occurred before.
So, and let me be super clear on a couple of things. I'm all for you guys fighting back against this when it's appropriate.
Yes.
I get that there's sometimes we can and sometimes we can't, right? But there's some that in my opinion, we've agreed to way too much that's not even in the CASA, in my opinion. That's me. And again, I'm just a sergeant. But real quick, and then I'll
No.
We are hemorrhaging officers because of this discipline policy, and we will continue to hemorrhage officers until that's fixed. I'll be honest with you, sir, I have no desire to leave, but I've called para. I'm at 2510. I have zero desire to actually leave. I love my department. I love everybody in this room, but I've called para because where we're at now, it's not. I'm not interested in disciplining my kids in headhunting them. I'm not interested in that. And when you have people like Trey Economidi, I don't know if you're aware of this, he spent $55,000 to leave early. John Freefortig spent over $100,000 to leave early. John should have left. He was incredibly disgruntled, but he's never getting that money back. And when people are doing that, there's an issue. And to me, having been in this field for almost 27 years, the current issue right now that's far overshadowing the DOJ is the discipline policy. And if you're telling me there's a fix in the way, then I have two responses to that. One, fantastic, and two, when's it going to get here?
We're working on it. And this the thing is, we need time. Yeah, and you said we did give too much. I fought our use of force revamp tooth and nail. I was the only one that fought it. I was the deputy chief in the corner by himself. Did not agree with the amount of video review. What's the biggest problem, sergeants?
Takes 12 hours to do a 3-second show of force.
You know what I found out? We were compared to Baltimore. And guess what? It's not a true comparison.
Not even close.
And what are we working to fight now? Video review. It's not like we can just say no. I want everybody to understand that. The administration just can't say no. Because ultimately, if I just say no, I'm not doing that, who's held in contempt of court? Joe Arpaio. Who knows Joe Arpaio?
Who?
Sheriff Arpaio.
Arizona. He told DOJ he wasn't going to do what they said. He got convicted. I have the most skin in the game with DOJ and how I react. And they have convicted sheriffs, chiefs, who are not moving the process forward. So you're right, Sean, we do have to push back. But it has to be done in the correct circumstances, and it has to be done through the proper methods, and sometimes the proper methods are slow. Another chief was organized tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Major City Chiefs once again. The first chief to get Major City Chiefs organized. Every agency under a settlement agreement is now sitting down meeting once a month to compare policies and compare monitoring teams to see how we're different and how we could all get on the same page. Because that's the key. I don't need to create the newest, greatest, new experimental policy. I need to find what somebody else is doing great and bring it here. That works somewhere else and bring it here. I don't need an A paper. C's get degrees. For this chief. We just got to get through this. Like I said, I just wanted everybody to hear it. Obviously, it caused a big ripple. I hope our explanation makes sense. Hope you know why we did. I know this much. We didn't have any further protests. Yes, Monday I was invited to a candlelight vigil by some of the organizers that I couldn't make at UNM. I don't even think we had to deploy on Monday because they called me. They told me, don't worry, Chief, we're not going to march. Promise you we're going to stay at UNM. You tell me when we've had that before in the past.
It's been a while.
That they call us. We're back there. And it's a good thing because it reduces us having to call people in to sit for nothing. Like I said, thank you guys for your service while you did it. We appreciate it. We'll figure it out. Anything else?